All right, we're going to learn about space and what space is and how you create the illusion of space. So, a two-dimensional surface, okay, so I have this right here. So this two-dimensional surface right here, that is called a picture plane. And when we have that picture plane is flat, and when we want to create dimension, we have to create the illusion of space or depth. A lot of contemporary artists are aware of this, that this is flat, and they want to create an image that has both flatness and illusion in the same image. And I know I do that sometimes too. So you kind of look into you get kind of sucked into the depth, and then you're pulled back, and you notice the surface and maybe texture and just the quality of the surface and kind of that push and pull. 3D work uses actual space, so we're not working in 3D, but when you do, you are walking around the space. You're actually using real space, like a cup that I have here. This is real space. Okay. So when you look at this image, there's some space made by the road. One of the reasons we can tell that the road is going back in space. In the front, the road's really big. In the back, it's a lot smaller, so it's going back in space. But there are some areas where we kind of notice how flat the surface is. Maybe up here, or really these buildings here, if you looked at them, if you didn't have the reference of the road, it would look like an abstract shape. Even the tree kind of. So there's moments where we notice the flatness of the space, and then other moments where we have an illusion. Okay, so these are the devices to show depths, and if you look in the page for space, in the module space, you'll see that I talk about all of these, and I have little images of just a little kid's tree showing just a basic concept. And so in your assignment, you're going to pick 2 of these to create a sense of depth. Okay, so these 2 are size, overlapping, vertical location. Oh, I have multiple perspectives. That's not required. I think that's important to understand, but that's not going to be one of the ones you use in your project, though you can if you want. Atmospheric perspective and linear perspective. So let's go over what these are. So size is just as objects get farther away, they just look smaller. That's it. So something in front looks bigger, something behind it looks smaller. So the people in the front are bigger, the people in the back are small. That's it. So very simple. So when you're doing your design, if you want something to look smaller, you just make it smaller in comparison to the things in front. It needs to be something that would be similar size, right? You have 2 trees, one's way small, one's big. That makes sense. If you have like a tree and a ball, the ball is going to be smaller no matter what, so putting it smaller doesn't make us realize that it is way back in space. So they need to have relative size. So that's what this means, relative size. They need to be things that are usually similar size. And then you make one smaller, boom, you now have a sense of space. Here's an example with an abstract image, right? Just because these are smaller, they feel like they're falling down into space, and that there maybe is like a hole or something like that. Or just like it's in the air and gravity's pulling them down, and now they look farther away. And all the artist did was make them smaller. So it tricks our brain to think that there's space there. I mean, they also put them in directions that feel like free-falling, so that helped too. Exaggerative relative size just creates like a lot more depth. So if you wanted to exaggerate, like this fish is really, 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 really big. So it feels like it's super close to our eyes. It's right up against that picture plane. And then these are much, much smaller, so they seem way, way farther away. And we know that mountain is really, really far away because the mountain is way bigger than a fish usually. And since it's so small, we know it's really, really far away and the fish is up close. Okay, overlapping. So this is a simple device for creating the illusion of depth. Each shape hides another. So if I put my hand here and then I put my other hand, overlapping. I know this hand is behind this hand. Super easy. And so the illusion of depth increases when you overlap in combination with change of size. So if you have a hand here and then a small hand back here, we know that this hand's farther back. And it also works with abstract shapes. Okay, another way is vertical location. So this is used a lot in art from the Near East and Asian art. And so things that are higher up, like these people over here, we assume they're farther back than these people over here. You can combine this with size and overlapping, right? Or just size. So you can put the smaller people up higher and the people that are bigger down lower, and that's going to increase the sense of space too. Multiple perspectives. So this is less so about space, but I just wanted to talk about multiple perspectives. When you look at anything, you are looking from multiple vanishing points because we move our bodies a lot of the time. So if I'm looking straight at this camera, if I sit still the whole time, I'm looking at the camera. But in reality, I'm looking over here and looking over here and looking down and looking up and looking all around. And so there's, when I make art, a lot of times I'm making it in that more Western idea of looking at one perspective. So that would mean that I'm looking at it in a fixed perspective. I'm not moving my head at all. Now, artists over time, that's a very Western way of seeing the world. Most art traditions have multiple perspectives. So this is an Egyptian painting, and you can see that they use multiple perspectives in this way too, by the fact that they use the most recognizable shape of the human body. So the chest, we recognize the chest. It's facing forward. The eye is also facing forward, and then the head is turned side because that's very recognizable. That profile, and so are the legs. So now, of course, we couldn't see a person in so many directions unless we were moving around them. But it just shows that different cultures, their goal wasn't always to make something realistic, and in this case, their goal was more to show the most recognizable parts of a body all together. So modern artists, so modern is like the late 1800s, early 1900s, so a long time ago. People, a lot of times they say like, oh, I don't understand modern art. That's okay, but do you know what modern art is? Modern art is from a long time ago, the late 1800s. Modern art is not modern today. It does not, the art made today is not modern. It's called contemporary, meaning made today. Modern art's totally different time period. So modern artists did start getting more and more abstract. And one of the things they took from other cultures, pretty much took it, is this idea of multiple perspectives. And Cézanne did that a lot. And so you look at this image and you're looking across at something, you're looking down, like see this table, we're looking down, but we're looking across over here. So just like our eyes are moving around, so is the composition showing different parts, different perspectives from different locations of our body. Okay, so that talks about perspective. And what perspective really is just, so different perspectives is just the way our body moves around. Perspective in general is just how we see something, where we're standing, how we see it. So atmospheric perspective also creates depth, but it's creating depth in a very different way and than what we usually think of as perspective. It just means that the things in the back get lighter and sometimes more blue or gray if there's color, and things in the front are clearer and more textured and detailed. So we see this in this photograph right in the front. It's darker, more detail, more texture. As you get back, it's lighter and blurrier. Another easy way to create depth, and a lot of times this is used with maybe linear perspective, or also it's used with things just being smaller in the back and bigger in the front. So it's good to combine multiple ways of showing depth. Here's one with color. You can see that the mountains got more blue, or sometimes they get more gray. Okay, so linear perspective is probably the most complicated way of showing space or depth, and when you go to the next page, or one of the pages on the modules, you'll walk you through drawing this. But what it is, it's just parallel lines recede and they appear to converge to meet an imaginary line called the horizon, or the eye level. So this is your eye level, this is where is the vanishing point, and these are called orthogonal lines in real life, in real space, not in 2D space. In real space, those lines are parallel. And they converge on the same place in the horizon line. So it looks like this. And by using those lines to create a box, you have depth. And again, you're going to draw this. So if you don't really understand it just yet, draw along with the video and it will probably start to click a little bit. So here's an example of a hallway. We see it as depth. Now the hallway, let's go back to the hallway. The hallway, this line and this line, right, the walls, they are never going to touch. Even if they went on for infinity, they wouldn't touch. But the clue to making depth is they look like they're going to touch. So you see here, when you draw those lines out, they actually touch. And they come to this point, and that point's the vanishing point. And so what you need to do when you're creating linear perspective is show this idea that they eventually will touch, and that that will show depth. Here's an example of that linear perspective. And 2-point perspective, I don't have an assignment where you learn 2-point perspective. If you've taken drawing and you want to use 2-point perspective in your assignment, you can go for it. But 2-point just means there's 2 points, and that one side of the box goes to one point and the other side goes to the other box. So it's showing depth when you're looking at something geometric from the corner rather from the front. And here's an example of that. And here's an example of a painting that does point perspective. And that's all. So again, in the assignment, you're going to use two different ways of using or creating depth in your assignment, and keep going through the module and it will explain in detail how you do that. All right, bye-bye.